And in a moment, we'll be getting some thoughts on the mood of conference with Aaron Bastani, the founder of the website Novara Media. He's also a Jeremy Corbyn supporter. And Alex Wickham, reporter for the Guido Fawkes website, where they are not such fans of Jeremy Corbyn. First of all today, the Shadow Chancellor, John McDonnell, told an audience last night at the Momentum conference over the road that his allies were wargaming for a scenario in which an incoming Labour government could be faced with a run on the pound or capital flight. He told an audience at The World Transformed that they are building up a base, so when or if they come for us, they can sustain that sort of potential assault. Let's have a listen.
We're going to face all the challenges that I'm sure you've discussed before I got here and Paul mentioned as well. And we've got to scenario plan for those. And that's exactly what we're doing at the moment, bringing the relevant expertise together at every level to talk through what happens if there's such and such a reaction, what if there is a run on the pound, what happens if there is this concept of capital flight. I don't think there will, but you never know, so we've got to scenario plan for that.
John McDonnell there last night. Aaron Bastani, the Shadow Chancellor says the party is engaged in wargaming type scenario planning to deal with possible runs on the pound and capital flight if they get into power. Is that an admission in your mind that Labour policies would frighten the horses?
No, I just think it's about negotiating from a position of strength. You need to know all the potential scenarios that could unfold. Maybe nothing would happen, maybe we'd have a mass capital flight. I think the former is far more likely than the latter, but it shows the astuteness of John McDonnell that he's willing and able to just communicate that to the British public. Because it could happen. I think that level of honesty actually is what endears him, not just to the Labour base, but the public.
Does it endear you, this honesty within the Labour Party about possible flight of capital?
Well, it is honest, and we can commend him for that. But I think a lot of people sitting at home would be slightly concerned to hear the Shadow Chancellor say that, and indeed Aaron, to say there could be mass capital flight if Jeremy Corbyn becomes Prime Minister. I mean,
or is this just typical of people like you on your side of the argument trying to condemn any incoming Labour government before they've even got there?
I mean, if people of the right were coming out and saying, oh, there'll be mass capital flight if Jeremy Corbyn becomes Prime Minister, then fine. But this is John McDonnell saying it. And, you look at the chap they've got in to come and do this wargaming for them, a professor called Richard Barbrick. He describes himself as a cyber communist. Do you think that's going to allay people's concerns about a run on the pound? Possibly not.
I mean, do you think that might be the reason? Questions about Labour's economic credibility and the fact that the CBI, the Confederation of British Industry, says Labour's nationalisation plans will see investors run to the hills. Have you wargamed that scenario, which you need that investment in order to fund the plans?
I don't take the CBI particularly seriously. We have in this country...
They represent 200,000 businesses.
Today, 1 hour of work produces less than it did 10 years ago. We have a crisis of productivity. And election after election, they have backed consecutive administrations who have not done anything about that. Wages down 10.4% since 2007. GDP per head really going nowhere. Now,
is that the CPI's fault or the government's fault?
It's about a rigged system which is upheld in the media and in politics, and I think also, yes, by the CBI.
Right. I mean, in many ways, though, Jeremy Corbyn has been vindicated, hasn't he? They didn't win the election, but they did much, much better than perhaps they, and certainly many in the media and the public, actually expected. So shouldn't they be listened to seriously?
I mean, we have to take them seriously, and it's absolutely important that people like the civil service make preparations for the eventuality of a common government.
They're here in a way that I haven't seen for a few years.
I mean, we had Fabian Hamilton, who's the Shadow Disarmament Minister.
Shadow Minister for Peace.
Sorry, exactly, Peace and Disarmament. And he revealed the other night that he or Emily Thornberry had met with the civil service during the election to prepare for what would happen in the event of a Labour government, and they put out their plan to a senior Foreign Office civil servant for a disarmament minister, and their plan for disarmament, the senior civil servants apparently replied that that was brilliant. I wonder if that's really what they think.
Right, well, we'll be talking to Fabian Hamilton a little later on in the programme. The problem with wargaming things like a flight of capital or a run on the pound is that it would hit the very people that Jeremy Corbyn and you and his supporters want to help.
Look, we heard this before Brexit, didn't we? The pound was going to collapse, the economy was going to collapse. Fundamentally, Britain is a stable country. We have stable institutions. We haven't had any, significant change in our structure of our government.
So we could
for
afford
3
to have.
centuries.
We could afford to have a run on the pound. Is that what you're saying?
I think it would be a run on the pound. Look, fundamentally, we can talk about capital flight. We've had capital flight since the early 1970s. Politicians say, where's the magic money tree? It's in the Bahamas, it's in the Cayman Islands, it's in Jersey. We have capital flight, but for the Tories, that's business as usual.
Right. What do you say to that?
I mean, I think it's all very well for Labour to say we're going to pay for our PFI nationalisation, our nationalisation of the crowning heights of industry by closing tax loopholes. I mean, that's a very simplistic answer, though, and they say all their policies are costed.
But I know it's been said before, but we mean it.
Every politician says that.
But you've got a tax code that thick, and it's impossible to close.
You can't, on the one hand, say these guys are completely different, completely new. They're a break with the system, and then say, oh, they'll be just like the rest of them with tax avoidance. They mean it, and I think John McDonnell said it last night. He was told that incomes above 150k are more fluid, they can move elsewhere. He said, not when I'm in charge. And I believe him.
But how would he know? I mean, there are indications of changing patterns of behaviour amongst highest earners. And again, that would hit John McDonnell's plans for capital expenditure, for example, and big infrastructure projects. And one of the things that he announced to great cheers yesterday was bringing in-house PFI, Private Finance Initiative, contracts. How much would that cost?
He stated how much it's going to cost.
No, he didn't.
There was the numbers in terms of what would be brought onto the government books, and I've been running around doing things like this all day, every day. I don't know the numbers on PFI.
Do you think it's important that they know the numbers? I mean, I've spoken to the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury yesterday, Peter Dunn. He couldn't tell me how much it would cost, and he said it would be pretty self-financing.
We're not in a general election. It's now going to be in the next manifesto, the next general election, and I assume, in fact, I can probably guarantee it will be fully costed. And people can criticise that. Look, the public knows this. Labour's proposals are costed to an extent far beyond anything the Tories offer.
Right, let's talk about anti-Semitism, because there has been criticism about the way the party has dealt with it in the past. There is a rule change that has been proposed to deal with discrimination between Labour Party members. Why do these accusations keep cropping up in Labour?
Labour is a huge party. I think latest estimates, 560,000 members. There are going to be people saying ridiculous things, and frankly, they shouldn't be in the party. And I'm very glad that people... But look, what do you mean, why are they?
Why are they still in the party?
No. Well, there's a great article, your viewers can see this, Open Democracy, Anti-Semitism Scandal, Labour. There is a chart on how quickly people were expelled, 90% within 48 hours of it being brought to the attention of the relevant authorities within the party.
But as I understand it, Ken Livingstone's still suspended and hasn't been expelled. Should he be?
He's suspended.
Yeah, should he be expelled?
Personally, I don't think he should be in the party.
Right.
But that decision's not down to me.
No, I was just asking your opinion.
That's my personal opinion.
You brought up this story on your website. Explain to our viewers.
I sat through a fringe meeting of Labour members yesterday in which speakers were comparing Israelis to Nazis. They were talking about how we need to have a debate about whether the Holocaust happened. They were talking about expelling the Jewish Labour movement, a group of Jewish activists, expelling them from the party. This group has been affiliated to the Labour Party for decades, and now we've got Labour activists calling for Jewish groups to be kicked out of the party. The lady who chaired this group, Naomi Wimborne, she was speaking in the conference hall this morning. She hasn't been swiftly dealt with. There's no attempt to do anything about this.
What did she say?
Jeremy Corbyn hasn't said anything.
What did she say? Don't impute that she said. Say what she said.
She's time and time again said there's no issue of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party.
That's not abusive, is it? I mean, you think she should be expelled for that?
No, but it's
she's
the
denying
question.
it. I disagree with it.
She has chaired an event.
I disagree with it.
People are talking
a tiny event, Alex. I mean, you went there because you know what's going to happen. It was a tiny event.
So that's okay, just because
it's not okay. Look, you're going to the absolute...
There are probably 80, 90, 100 people at that event.
And it's incredibly marginal. And look, these are the same tunes we heard in June, and guess what?
They don't go very far. Is it acceptable for people to cheer at a Labour fringe event? It was outside. It wasn't on the official fringe event. It was an event that was on the list, though, that was certainly in the publications that have been around here at conference. And if people are questioning whether the Holocaust happened or not, is that something that should happen in any part of Labour conference?
There's a bit of slippage here. So people have a political disagreement with the Jewish Labour movement. That's one thing. That's a political disagreement. But then you can't say all the people saying this are also denying the Holocaust. This is classical right-wing rigged system PR coming from Mr. Wickham.
Well,
answer that. Nothing less.
Answer that, Mr. Wickham.
All this talk about rigged system and basically going with accusing, someone who quotes directly what someone was saying is basically fake news. It's all a bit Trumpian, isn't it? It's all a bit rigged system. That's a direct quote from the president, isn't it?
All right. I'm going to have to end it there. You can continue this discussion, of course, here at the Labour Party conference. It's a beautiful day in Brighton.